Hello, Jack. Hello, Maisem. Let me set up the stage here. This is in the context of Internet of Production. So, Jack, for you, Internet of Production is an association. It's an organization association mostly based in, in Europe and the US. So they have people in both continents. And the goal of the organization is to provide some services to the ecosystem of distributed production. Okay, that's why they're called Internet of Production. And our assignment within this organization is to explore how we can make distributed production more reliable, more dependable. How can we generate trust so whenever we work with people through the internet across the world, things flow without people being afraid that somebody in the ecosystem it's not going to be a good player, right? So there's different dimensions to that. Okay, in our Western world we use contracts. So, for example, if you want to enter into some type of agreement or transaction with somebody in Africa, which is your case, the prescription here is to have a contract signed between the two parties, and then these transactions can happen without the fear of being cheated or something like that, right? And correct. So it makes things reliable. But there are many other dimensions. Okay, so you can take like the cultural aspect of these relationships, the gentleman handshake, where in the culture it is not accepted to cheat the other party, and so people are incentivized to fulfill their promises, right? There can also be economic reasons. For example, both parties know that this is a sort of a repeating relationship that brings benefits to everyone. So acting in good faith, helps that relationship to be sustainable. So both parties, they can have these mutual benefits for a longer term. So nobody's incentivized to cheat. Now with the new technology, there's also the smart contract. Okay, which is a sort of some programs that is self-executing if something, if some conditions are fulfilled. So that's a technological approach. Okay, we can use cryptocurrency with some escrow wallets. So you say, I'm going to put my money in this wallet, and if and whenever you do the thing, the money goes straight to you, cannot come back to me. So there too, there's a sort of a trust established just by having this technology in place. So there are many ways we could create trust and make these processes dependable. And I like your case, Jack, because you are a sort of a good example of pure peer-to-peer relationships established based on human trust, and I would like to dig a little bit deeper and document this case,
okay.
Which is happening outside of institutional and the legal system, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so that's why. So
that's the thing. If you got to do something different, if the things that are there available already are not helping the people that you're trying to help, then those systems are not serving them. They're failing them. So you have to come up, not necessarily to oppose something else, but you want to come up with something that works, without being illegal, without being harmful, without threatening anybody.
Yes, and in some circumstances, the legal aspect, it just simply doesn't work, because when you work with somebody in Africa and you send him and you send him $100, if that person is not acting in good faith, to enforce a contract, it would cost you thousands of dollars. So it's not practical, right? So Plenty4All, that's essentially you in the United States, providing some help to some communities in Africa, right?
That's what it ended up being. That's not what it started out being.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so let's go to the beginning then. What was at the beginning? It was just you as a person, right?
Well, it sort of started with, it started with when I understood what climate change was doing and the amount of time that it would take to destroy, a planet that I know. And for me, I'm 73 years old. So it's not so much about me, it's about my grandchildren. It's about all the people I know and my love of children. I've taught children all my life. And that's exactly why I'm doing Plenty4All, is for children. That's the first place I start, is with children. So it's about trying to address this climate change thing. So I had first started out by thinking about, well, how do you do that? You go someplace. I thought about going to West Virginia, to coal mining communities in West Virginia that have been destroyed by coal mines. They have bad water, they have no jobs, lots of drugs, issues, big issues. Well, I learned a lot of things. I designed a community design that basically what it would do is it would grow food for its own, even more than that. It would grow a lot more food than that. And it would also utilize the resources that were available to generate electricity, these big batteries like Teslas. And then what they would do is these people that don't want to have windmills generating their battery juice, they just exchange them once a month, and you could charge them and take them to them on a truck, with these batteries. And it was like just a thing for them to get money with, and they would have their own electricity as well. So this is all an investment in an environment. I was looking for a really cool greenhouse that would be effective in growing food and be able to use it, sell it maybe to the local grocery stores or whatever. Well, that's when I learned about Richard Nelson's solar roof, and what I thought was a greenhouse, but it was a lot more than a greenhouse. So that's where I got involved with Richard Nelson. But I also learned another thing when I was in West Virginia. The people in West Virginia were not at all interested in doing what I was interested in trying to help them do. They're very much anti-environmentalists because they're pro-coal, and that's the only fucking job they got. Look, I got family that comes from coal and oil fields, so I know what the hell the deal is. That's the only job you got. That's it. Otherwise, they wouldn't be destroying their land and everything else for them. So, I understand the situation. It was a dead end for me. I had no way of addressing that. Okay. But I did have this idea of going with the solar roof technology and building things that were the size that would fit in my backyard, for instance, and making them available. If they were designed right, they could be shipped any place, and they fundamentally could work anywhere. So when I started this thing, I set it up, and I was contacted because I had this on a website, and also had an email, and I got tons of email from all over the world, from like 12 different countries. Yes, countries. And in Kenya alone, in Africa, there were 10. There were 10 requests just from that one country.
Requests for your models, or
to work with me to develop. Yeah, to develop.
How did they find you? How did they find you?
With the webpage that I had at the time, and an email. It was email they could send me. I got so many emails, and good and bad, that I just cut the email off entirely. So I found out that what I couldn't do, and this is true of Facebook.
So you were posting your designs on your website?
Oh yeah, I still do. Everything that we build is on there. The reason for that is it's open source. Anybody that wants to build what we're building can. I didn't steal it from anybody. I built my own biochar kiln. It's my own design. I know what kind it is. I've studied it. We built lots of other things too. We built, but we built them from other designs of people's. We've replicated them, made them different, adapted them, so to speak.
So it's a remix of designs that you find online.
Yeah. For instance, one of the ways, since the people I work with have very little electricity, except for the solar electric systems that I've given them. Okay. Other than that, they have no way of storing their food. There's no refrigeration. So we started building root cellars. All
What
right,
is that?
because
Root?
root cellars. Root cellars is an old thing, you know, and back in the old West, people used them. What you do is you dig it, you know, under your house, or, you know, it's like a storm cellar.
So essentially, if we go back to the question, like what you do is mostly making communities sustainable by addressing food, energy
Yeah.
problems, and when it comes to food, it's about storage, it's about
It's about the whole
pest
thing, really.
control.
Yeah, it's about, and when we do crops and stuff, one of the things I found out is they were not
Irrigation
located.
as well.
What's that?
Irrigation.
Oh, irrigation. See, that's another thing. They don't have any water as such. Two of the co-ops have seasonal streams. One of them has none at all. They have to haul water in. So in all cases, what I did was I set up rainwater collection systems. That's for drinking water primarily, but in two of the cases they can use water that's available, and they can pump it. That's why we have solar electric 12-volt pumps, and we also pump them to water towers, and then we irrigate fields using drip irrigation systems, you know, pipes with little holes in them, so that they only drip on the base of the plant.
Tell me more about how you establish this relationship, because this is key. This is key. You didn't use an institutional framework to find these guys. So you're doing your stuff because you're passionate about these things, posting it on the website, making available your email, and people started to contact you from 12 countries. How did you move from that towards establishing a relation?
I selected a leadership representative, one from Africa, one from Asia, and then one here in the United States. So I tried to start 3 co-ops in 3 different places. All right. And the one failed here, and the other one failed also.
So how did you find these people? It's like just people online through.
They contacted me. Remember, I told you I was contacted by 12 different countries?
They contacted you, yes. So just chatting and establishing some rapport.
I communicated with people and decided which ones I wanted to work with and which ones seemed to have leadership quality. Polycap, I was really impressed with because of his ability to communicate and the things that he was doing. Okay.
Excuse me, Jack, can I ask a question?
Sure.
Yeah, first, I'm really glad to meet you, and I'm really enjoying listening and learning from your experience. When you say you identified leadership, the leadership criteria, the leadership point, what do you mean by that? What are you looking for to say, okay, this is a group of people that have proper leadership and I want to move on with them? And what are the criteria that you would say, okay, these people lack leadership, hence I'm not going to move on with them, in your vision of the peer-to-peer world?
Well, given the situation, the kind of things that I was trying to do were basically agricultural community-based things. And these are working with people who do not have these things available to them. So this is what I was looking for. I was looking for people who wanted to represent women and children, okay, primarily, that want to raise the status of those people in their communities. I was looking for people who had skills, okay. They had to have some kind of record of talking or moving around and, you know, interacting with other people, maybe language skills, maybe educational skills, but not necessarily any kind of degree or anything like that. But I'm more interested in the skill levels of these people and the capability. You know, I mean, I'm 73. It's awful hard for me to go out and do this stuff. You know, it takes a polycap to be able to build the world we need right now, not me. So, but I mean, for instance, the one gentleman I picked is in Nepal. And see, when I set these co-ops up, what I did was the co-op is a tool, because you talked about agreements about working together and about, distribution of things and whose responsibility is what. That's what a co-op is. It basically just sits down, describes where things go, and then who's in charge and how that's distributed. And the people in the co-op section, there's like 5 membership sections in it. So you could have 5 individuals in a community that wanted to participate in this agricultural kind of community thing, and it gave them a tool to do it with. Because not everybody wants.
Did you have a co-op template?
Yes, it's on my website, as a matter of fact. If you go to Plenty4All.net,
yeah,
if you go there, there's a whole section describing what Plenty4All is. I mean, in terms of what the co-op is, how everything is distributed. Because if you set up something, if you're poor, okay, and you want to set up something, you don't have land and you don't have money. So you need to work with somebody with land or money. So part of that co-op is a distribution that allows for that, okay? It doesn't mean that somebody can come in here and run it for you. As a matter of fact, you don't even have to run it. You could have a portion of that co-op can be run by a group. For instance, you could own land and run that, and then have co-op people who worked in something in it. You could have dozens of different activities that a co-op could be involved in. You can raise chickens, you can sell eggs, you can do corn, you can do crops, you can do herbs.
But let me understand. So Plenty4All is a co-op in the States, and you were trying to clone that co-op to make like satellite co-ops in other parts of the world that have the same kind of structure that you laid out. So you provided a template, right?
Right. And basically it was not a matter of, not like a franchise. You understand? So that's what it sounds like, another Dunkin' Donuts. No, it's not what it is. What it is it empowers that particular group of people. And you are working with them to empower that community. You're not taking anything from them. So, like, for instance, right now, I do everything that I did before, but I am not CEO. Polycap is. I made him CEO when we changed it over.
So the co-op in Africa, for example, is just for them to be able to function as some type of community business operation.
Exactly. And I'm not even sure. I mean, I talked to Polycap about this, and I talked to each one of them about it, because I know each one of the project managers, and I know the communities. I've met the people that are in the co-ops. When Polycap went there, I talked to them before they all signed on as a co-op. They were sitting there, under a tree, talking to me, asking me questions.
So does establishing the co-op give you more trust in these people? Is it a way to organize their work so that it becomes more reliable? Or it's just for them to function? Like, I'm trying to understand.
It's for them. It's for them. It's not for me. It's for them to work in the community, because what it allows, one of the things I like the notion about the co-op is that it allows them to work with lots of different people in a variety of ways, that allows them to be creative. And I don't run them. I've told them that right from the get-go. I don't run your co-op. And actually Polycap doesn't either. We just cooperate with each other. We work together. And to be quite frank, most of the most fantastic things that we've done are not co-op kinds of things. They're the kinds of things that people do for each other when they show up out of love. When people are dying, when people are hurting, when people are starving. That's what. Because then the co-op shows up. Then we go to work. We take people from, like in Mount Pokot, some of the members of the co-op in Milama were from Mount Pokot, and they had a mudslide there. It took out entire villages. It killed 5 of our co-op members, left 16 kids and the rest of them adults, 21 people with no homes, and nobody to go get them. All the roads were out. There's no fucking roads, no bridges, no nothing. So I talked to Polycap and Joseph, and I said, what are we going to do? I said, we need to get them out of there. I said, but I don't know how. And Joseph said, I can get them out of there. And I said, okay, let's get a plan. And so he went in, probably took some people with him. He went in down there with them, and he took all of them out of there, brought them up as far as we could to the nearest bus station. And then he bused them to his houses. And he's had them there for the last almost 2 years now. And his mother just died, and she's the one that was taking care of him. And she's 93. So there's another thing. This is a lady that was taking care of all these people, and she just died.
Mhm.
Part of what we did and part of what I do is I pay for funerals. I pay for part of the funerals. It costs them a lot of money to bury somebody. They don't got any money. When they get sick, and that same community got sick earlier in the year, they had cholera. There was an outbreak of cholera. I sent them to the nearest health clinic. We got care for people there, and then I had to pay for some people to go to check out everybody there so we could catch that before it got too far. And then I bought some filtration systems and sent them. I couldn't buy those when I first started this because they weren't available there. I couldn't ship them to them. They're the camping ones, and they last almost forever. You can clean them out, and it'll kill almost everything. So we took care of the cholera. But those are things that don't make you any money. You understand?
Yeah.
When I started this
Jack.
in the first place, I started as a for-profit nonprofit, because if you're going to be a successful farmer, you want a lot of crop. You want to be able to sell them all, or the eggs or whatever. But it's a question of redistribution of what the profit is. See, and that's what the co-op is about. It talks about how the money is redistributed,
Yes.
and so it's in a fair way.
Jack, I have a question, please.
Sure, yeah.
When you're laying out the picture for us, at what point does it stop being a co-op with a certain level of sustainable activities, and when does it start to be, okay, it's me, Jack, putting out of my pocket to help the people? Or
Well,
are
that's a
you
good
eventually, yeah, sorry.
That's a good question. You know,
Yeah.
so the question is, you know, why would I continue to do that? It's because of what I'm seeing is this empowerment that it provides these people with is incredible, because they're doing things for themselves that they never were able to do before. These children are going to school that weren't going to school. And so we're making progress, whether I'm going to be there or not, because I'm quite frankly, I'm lucky to be alive right now. I survived colon cancer 2 years ago, and not to mention some other things along the way here. So that's an always net risk thing that I'm trying to set up where I can have something better going for them, or something I can leave for them, and hook them up with the right people before I'm gone. That's the idea, you know.
Well, didn't you start with that when you were giving them the co-op template and giving them that co-op structure to run themselves? And how does it differ from one place to another? So when you're telling them, okay, this is the template for co-op, guys, you're going to be taking care of yourselves. How are the different rules changing from one area to another? To what extent is that sustainable? To what extent are you seeing that they are being able to survive on their own? Talk us more into that, please.
Well, I think they've taken the initiative, and they're doing better and better all the time. We have specific projects and stuff that we're focused on doing, and we've made enormous progress in terms of our learning about what we can do with what we're given, because we only have so much land that we're given. With that land, what we've done is we've tried to regenerate the soils, put in a variety of mostly indigenous kinds of plants. We've integrated what are called food forests. And food forests are a low maintenance way to have food all year round, just about, if you plan them correctly. We're trying to recapture the natural water that falls back into the soil again, instead of having it run off and cause these mudslides. See, because that's what's happening. That same thing is happening to the west coast of the United States. Years and years of drought, with all of a sudden you got climate change kinds of storm, which means lots of water all at once dumped on you with winds, very high winds. And what that does is just rips the trees right out of the ground, and you got mudslides. And it's going to happen. It's going to keep happening, because I can see that as a kind of a symptom of climate change. That blew away one of our children's centers. We have children's centers in each one of the co-ops. That's the main part of what we do, is focus on children, feeding the children and educating them. And in order to do that, I have to feed and educate their families, so everybody eats. But the children's club that we had in Niwa, the original one, was a community building, and we had all the kids in Niwa were allowed to come there. And Niwa has a lot of street children, and so all these kids came there. And then the storm came through, one of these climate storms, and it blew the entire roof off and parts of the side, destroyed the entire inside of the building. It just wrecked it. Well, we had to build an entire building. We raised funds and built an entire new building for the children's club. But that's climate change. See, you got drought, insects, climate change. All those things are in Africa, buddy. There. And you had COVID. It killed one of the best drivers we had. He used to take the stuff to the co-ops, Polycap, and get stuff and take it to them and set up these different equipment, the solar equipment or the rainwater collection systems. Polycap always goes there and sets those up, helps them. What we do is we teach how to do it, and then we expect you to do it. Okay? Mm-hmm. He's not going to go back. Huh?
So here's the question, like, what is the type of stuff that you have to agree on? Like, what is the type of engagements in your day-to-day activities? For example, if there is an initiative and you want to help, is the agreement about sending money and them doing something? Like, how would you characterize that? What do you need to agree on? It's like transfer of materials, transfer of money, transfer of services. What is the relationship between you and them, and what is the stuff that you need to agree on? How important it is?
It's pretty much the same right now with Polycap and I, because what we're doing is we're looking at the overall picture of Plenty4All. And so we're looking at what would benefit next, where can we get assistance and support. Like, we've applied for this, I don't know if you're familiar with the Zaid. It's a scholarship or grant, but
yes.
we've applied for several different things, and trying to get some funding and backing for all three co-ops, because he's CEO, he's over the whole thing, so he can apply for stuff, like with USAID. If we have the right parameters, he can apply and get funding to build something. Like, what I'd like to see is, I'd like to see a women and children's center with like a first aid kind of thing built into it for each of these co-ops, right? And I can't afford that.
Mm-hmm.
There's no way in hell I can afford that. Now, see, Polycap knows what I can afford and can't afford too. Or he'll ask me and I'll tell him, there's no way. I just put a roof on my house. And I did, by the way. So, it's a matter of what can I afford? What do we need? What's an urgency here? Sometimes you'd much rather do something else, but you don't have any choice. Life, you don't dictate to life. Life, you write it. You do the best you can with it.
And sometimes you do transfer money, right? How does it work? He says,
I do it all the time. Every time we have a project, we discuss the project. Okay, we talk about what materials are available. What do you need? It's to send a kid to school, to buy materials, to buy seeds, to buy trees, or whatever. We make a list. Then I get cost estimates. He gives me cost estimates where he gets, what he's going to pay for it. Then I send him the money.
How?
MoneyGram.
So it's a traditional money banking, interbanking system, right?
Right. There's several ways you could do it with MoneyGram, but yeah, that's what we use. And then he takes the money,
How do you say that?
Well,
MoneyGram? MoneyGram?
yeah, MoneyGram. You go to Walmart. I don't go to Walmart. I got an app on my phone. I do it from my house.
MoneyGram. Okay. So you send that, and is that so that's an interesting question. So you're sending money, and then he executes, and then there is a validation, right? How do you know that the money was used?
For one thing, I know when it's picked up because I get notified. And secondly, he notifies me when he picks it up. And then he tells me basically when he's going to go get whatever it is or if he's ordering it. And then he'll tell me when it comes in or when he's got it. And he shows me a picture of it. And then he'll show me using it or where he plants it or whatever.
Exchange of pictures of materials purchased and final product. And that's how you establish this trust, right?
Yeah, right. Now you got to remember Polycap came to my house. Okay.
Yeah.
He lived here for 3 months and attended a course with me called agripreneurship. Because initially, like I said, my notion was to start a for-profit nonprofit, which means you want to make a profit and then you distribute it at the end of the year. And that's what makes it a nonprofit. There's no holding of money on it. All right. So that's what I was setting up. It's a nonprofit, but very unconventional to some people. All right. As a matter of fact, I had issues with lawyers and shit about that. So at any rate, it doesn't matter now. It's a nonprofit. And when I sent money to, and you asked us before about something about the church, I told the church that I belong to, that I sent him this money. I showed them the same thing that I'm telling you, and they said, "Well, we'll just back this as an outreach mission. We like this. We're going to help you. So you just turn it in here, turn it in under Plenty4All." And I set it up with them, and they set up their accountants looked at it, their lawyers looked at it, and they looked into to making sure it was legal in Kenya. And we set up it with a bank to bank. So when they send money, whatever's been donated to them goes through their network and goes directly to Polycap's account. I don't touch it. I made them do it that way.
So this money come from your local community through the church, get transferred to Polycap based on projects.
If whoever wants to donate, it's usually just somebody in the church. Hardly ever do you gonna have somebody come over and donate money that way. It doesn't happen that way. There isn't that much money coming through there. The church I go to is a wonderful church, and the people are wonderful in it. But they're older than I am, and I'm 73. Some of my best friends are in their 90s. So I'm just saying, it's old world, okay, and they're helping me out. They're helping me out, and they're helping the world out. But it's not a big. It's not a thing where there's any money coming in from it.
No. But what I'm saying is that sometimes you send money to Polycap through your channels, and sometimes the church sends money to Polycap,
right,
from its members.
Yeah, so it could be done either way. So in other words, he's been checked out legitimately through the church, and everything is okay. And they were a little worried about Kenya being a terrorist nation, so I checked that out and let them know that was not true. So, but there's, Africa can be a wild west, and all of Kenya's neighbors are pretty wild. If you want to know the truth, all of them.
Interesting.
And see, now I don't know if you know about where my co-ops are. They're all in the western part of Kenya, not towards the ocean, but away towards Lake Victoria. Okay. They're all in the western part. Niwa's in the bottom part, the lower part of Kenya, and that's where Polycap lives. And then in the middle part is Rumarudi. And Jacqueline is the project manager there. And that is a widow's village. You know what widow's villages are?
No.
You don't?
No.
Well, in Kenya and then Uganda, and then some other African nations, if you're married and your husband dies or he's killed at war, you lose your land. You lose everything you own. And so the community then puts you into a widow's village, you and your children. That's what a widow's village is. So at any rate, this co-op is a widow's village. So it's all women. All right,
so how did you choose the location of the co-op? Was it for security reasons?
Polycap selected the co-ops because I tried other places in Africa and working with people, and I got screwed a couple times trying to help people, okay? And so I left. I knew what Polycap was doing. I trust him.
So did he choose this because it's easier for him to, like, bureaucratically speaking, to establish the co-op, or because
it's easier for him? But not only that, but see, one of the reasons I picked Polycap was because Polycap is a linguist. He speaks at least 7 different Kenyan languages, and he travels by foot all over Kenya. When I called him to ask him to be my project manager for Africa, not just Kenya, Africa, he was in let's see, where was he at? Ethiopia. He was just across the border in Ethiopia up there. He was at Saturday nights in Ethiopia, or in most of Africa, it's like a church night. So he was around the fire, sharing Bible verses with some people in Ethiopia, which is pretty cool in the sense that he could speak with them. He was there for peaceful purposes. He traveled there on his own. All right. And that's not particularly the friendliest part of the fucking world to go to. I don't know if you know about Ethiopians, but they're killing each other right now. There's a lot of tribal stuff that goes on there.
Yeah.
But also, so he's big about grassroots organizations and working with youth and also this. So that's one of the reasons that I chose him, you know.
Yeah.
And then I brought him here. All right. I tried
Yes.
to bring 2 other people here. One from Uganda and one from Nepal.
So what happened to the guy in Nepal?
They wouldn't let him here.
Do you still work with him, or is that relation was a successful one or not so successful?
I didn't have too much of a problem with him myself. As a matter of fact, I like some of the things. He was working with women also. Women, it was in his district area that he lived in. And I don't know, do you know much about Hindus?
Yes, a bit. No, not much.
Okay, well, all right. He's a Brahmin. Do you know what a Brahmin is?
Yes. All
right, well, a Brahmin
That's
is
a higher caste. That's a higher caste, yeah.
And basically his family owns or was in charge of or controls that entire region. You know what I'm saying? So at any rate, but he was organizing this co-op, and he was going to do it with the women on his uncle's farm, and they had this real long hill that went down to a river at the bottom, right? And the crops were at the top of the hill. So these women and the children went to the bottom of the hill and carried buckets of water up to the top of the hill to the crops. And I told him, you know, I didn't need to do that, you know. And so he had organized this co-op with these women. And I'd sent him a pump, a solar electric system with a pump. So that, you know, so you could set up and pump that water up the hill so the women and children didn't have to do that. He used that pump in his own backyard for his own well.
Oh, so that's a breach of trust.
That was a breach of trust. And I haven't seen those women. And you know, my concern is what I told you before why I do this. It's real simple. It's the children. And if the children aren't included in it, and I help the adults because of the children. Otherwise, I don't help the adults either. You know, it's just what I do.
How did you discover that? Like, you didn't go to Nepal?
No, he showed me a picture. He showed me a picture where he was using it. And so he does some good things. He's into technology. He wants to use sensors for growing and stuff like that. But he thinks the technology is going to transform what he's got there, and he's not utilizing some really natural stuff that could be done. You know, he's not a bad guy. don't get me wrong. He's not a bad guy, but I'm not going to play a game with him. He's got
Okay.
maybe 20 certificates all over for being ambassador to the world and all that. I don't, I want to see what I've given being used for the people that it's supposed to be used for. Okay. I'm not against anything the guy's doing. I don't think he's a bad person, but I won't work with him. Okay.
So this is an interesting thing. So the guy, that counterparty showed you certificates to as a means to establish trust. But you don't take this paper. For you, papers are not important, right? For you, what's important, if I'm understanding, is like the human relation, the trust.
They're worth looking at to see what they are. I mean, just to look, but I mean, I don't do that. Long ago, I learned that, you have to be careful about what someone else says about somebody if you really want to figure it out for yourself. See, I used to teach students that had behavior disorders. And if I read everything that was in a file about that kid before I got him, I would have some pretty preconceived notions about what that kid is and what he did. And everything. So I wouldn't read anything about him. Not till after. And then I'd meet him and talk to him, see what he had to say. And then I'd read the file and see what it said.
Mm-hmm. So let me fire some questions because we're taking longer than I expected. So how do you recognize agency? How do you recognize agency in a person? So you said that papers are not so important, right? When the guy shows you a bunch of diplomas and certificates and all that, but how do you really recognize? So we're going back to a previous question. How do you really like?
I'd rather see a napkin with a design for a greenhouse on it. Okay. That would impress me more if I saw a design for a greenhouse that was half in the ground to use geothermal properties and could wind itself in a stormy winter like up in Montreal. Now that would impress me. But a certificate in engineering doesn't mean anything to me unless you can build something with it, unless you can show me what you can build, unless you can take that knowledge and apply it. Application of knowledge is what's important. Not having knowledge, that's worthless.
Influence, the ability for the person to influence, that's also one of your criteria you said before. Is that right?
Yeah.
You said Polycarp speaks languages and travels.
Applying knowledge, yes. Good. Yeah, I think it's good.
Because I heard you say that what you like in Polycarp is that he speaks a lot of languages and he travels by foot, so he has the ability to influence, right?
Well, the thing about him though is it's not that's good, but have you met Polycarp?
Yeah, not in person, but we've talked on many occasions.
Okay, well, if you're ever around him or you're in his presence or you see his face, you'll smile because he has one of the most beautiful smiles I think I've ever seen in my life. He just will light you up. He's very personable. I'm not like that. You aren't either.
Okay.
I know you didn't. You're a lot of fun, but you're not like that.
Yes, you're most probably right. Most probably, some people are charismatic, right? They do have it, right?
Yeah, but it's a warm kind of a thing. You don't feel intimidated by him. You like him. You just like to go over and talk to him.
Yes, interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me see here. Are there measures to mitigate mistakes, missteps, errors, damage? Any framework that covers accountability? Let's say if somebody pulls out of an agreement.
Sometimes there is, and sometimes there isn't. It's a risk you take with if you're working with somebody. If I'm working with Polycap, it's a risk we both take. It's something we decided to do. Okay, so if it works, we know to do it again. If it doesn't, we know not to try it again. Okay, we try something else. But if it's somebody, that's a different story.
So there is a tolerance to mistakes. I mean, let's say Polycarp says, Jack, send me some money because I want to do this. And then things don't get done, but he has a reason.
It's okay.
It's okay, right? So mistakes are allowed within that ethical framework.
Well, couple things. He doesn't work for me. He never has worked for me. And he is my friend. Okay. Actually, he's more than my friend. He's more like family.
This is very interesting. That kind of template of relationship. So even if you send him money, there is no direct accountability to you as in a contractual relationship. You say it's just like a family. If my brother asks me for some money to do something and then he screws up, he is my brother. I'm not gonna step helping him, right?
No, that's right.
But
Yeah.
but there was a breach of contract with the guy in Nepal that we didn't like, right? The money was used for a pump, but not in the intended way, and that was not tolerated, right?
Correct. Well, I just didn't send him anything else. I've communicated with him.
Yeah.
And he asked me something about, for instance, my biochar kelp, because I posted stuff on it. And he asked it for information about that. And I said, yeah, I'll give you all the information. I can send you a couple of videos. You can build your own. I says, I'm not going to send you any money to build it, though. And so, I send it to him and I talk to him. He sends me stuff he's doing, and that's okay. I'm not cutting any bridges on anyone. He takes a different.
Interesting. Yes.
He's not a bad person. I just don't think he kept his word to me. And to me, it's important to stay on path with what I'm doing. All right.
So let me ask you this stupid question. I think I know the answer, but I don't want to put words in your mouth. Any punishment in case there is a breach of trust somewhere?
No, I'll take that responsibility myself. I won't get anything done doing that shit. That's another thing. This world won't change either. The whole reason I told you climate change is what upset me, because I know it's real. I can see it, and it's multiplied since I started working on all this. It's, if you can do something about it, you got to.
So there is no like clearly stated punishment. How do you say? Let's say, yes, Polycap, I will do this for you, but be careful. If you don't do that, this is not gonna. So there is no whenever there is an agreement, you are not focusing. There is no explicit element of punishment in your agreement. It is assumed that things will that both parties will do their best to fulfill their promises, knowing that mistakes can happen, and right. But the agreement is not built with a clause for punishment, let's say.
Not at all. Not at all. As a matter of fact, I don't know if you're like me or not, in the sense that I have 5 brothers and 3 sisters. Okay. And one of the things that's important, I think, with any kind of family kind of things is if you loan money to your family, don't expect to get it back.
Interesting. Yes. Yeah. So you're going with a positive mind frame.
If you do, that's great. But it's like your kid. You buy them a car. You loan them money. You want them to give it back. It's a good thing to do. It's, you know what I'm saying? That's a great thing to do. I don't want to haunt somebody's ass every time they look at me. Oh, I owe him $200. Is it worth $200 to make somebody feel bad all the time? It isn't to me. It's not just not to me. See, I have this priority about things. Right now, we've got a world that's all about money and things, and it's spiraling. All right. And what we need to take a look at is the most important thing of all. It's life. It's just down simple life. Anything that's living is important, the most important thing. And then after that, what makes all the sense in the world, the only thing that really makes any damn sense, is love. Not money, not power, not strength, but love. Love has all that. So if you got life and you got love, we can do some amazing things. But if we keep focusing on just more money, it's just like saying, oh yeah, you give me $1 million, I'll go over to Kenya and I'll solve the problem for him. Doing what? You coming up with money before you even have a fucking idea how you want to spend it? That doesn't work that way. Money's a tool. It doesn't do shit unless you do something with it.
I
May,
understand. This is an interesting thing. Money.
may,
So
may, may I ask here something, please?
Sure.
So, can I say that as you are meeting people, as you are looking forward to engage with different people around the world, you're not looking at a sheet of paper showing you what they know and they don't know. You're meeting their soul. You're meeting the person. You want to know the other person's priorities. You want to know how they look at life and what they're aiming for, rather than focusing on their technical abilities. So first you are trying to identify, what does this man or woman want? What are they looking for? What is their vision? And as you are identifying them as humans, this is where you get to a point where you tell them, can you build me what we need? Can you build me something that reflects our view of life? And then after you've met the personal, after you've checked the man or woman in them, this is where you check the knowledge. You ask them to translate that knowledge into practice. And could we say that these are the two main parameters that you choose to work with people? And these two parameters, once they're fulfilled, this is where you can establish trust and engage in a relationship that is closer to a family rather than a business classical relationship. Is that correct? Yeah.
Yeah, I along with that. It has to do with experience and being, with someone. If you're around someone, if you have the same interest in conversations and what makes you laugh and doesn't, and things like that. You feel comfortable with someone. You feel a presence around some people that just makes you feel good. But at the same time, I don't know about you, but there's people I don't like being around at all. I just assume not be around them, and it's just they don't even have to say anything. It's just the way they feel. It's I think it's I think it's a very special thing, to be quite honest. I'm looking at like there's things that I've started and I've run before that I've set up for other people to do. And sometimes it's worked and other times it hasn't. And a lot of times it depends on the individuals that run it. If they bought into it, if it works for them, or if it doesn't work for them. It might work for me. It doesn't mean it'll work for someone else. So
it is a push-pull. It's not a push relationship. You're not telling people what to do, what to implement. It's more like they coming to you based on their needs, and then there is a sort of an agreement. I mean, how many times did you propose something to somebody, and how many times somebody came with a need to you? Or it's something in between, it's more organic, it's in the relationship?
Well, what I tried to do was with Polycap, I had him set up any other co-ops that we were going to do. I just decided to just do there because he knew Kenya, he knew people already who would benefit by it, and he picked out two excellent places, by the way, totally different than where he's at, and great examples of how people live in regions in Kenya. But at any rate, he's the one that talks to them. He's the one that has the relationship with them. I have a relationship with them. I communicate with them by email all the time, and I have been in video conferencing with all of them. So I'm interacting and have been a whole time. But Polycap's the one that's basically on the ground. So I've trusted him to come up with the co-ops that would work for us. Now, when you set up a co-op, the thing that you want to do is you want to start with water. There's three things you have to do. You have to develop a community plan that's based upon three things: water, okay, and then food and energy. And they're all interrelated. And depending upon that community and what their resources are, as to which one you start with and how you deal with that. In my experience, they all need rainwater collection systems, and they all need 12-volt solar power for lots of reasons, especially to pump the water around with. That's really made a big difference. Not only that, but they can charge their phones, they can charge their laptops, they can watch TVs, they can do all kinds of things. And it's a matter, you just add the proper number of grids. If you've got the converters and everything for it, you can increase the power. We were kind of careful about this when we bought what we bought, so they could be expanded, you see. So it's not a question of need with all these things. It's a question of funding for them. Now, see, what I'm trying to show, demonstrate, because I believe that the human mind is such that it doesn't believe anything it hasn't seen before. Okay? We're stuck in a rut. If you haven't seen it, you might not believe it at all. But if someone can demonstrate something to you and you've seen it, then you know it is possible. And it makes you think more along the lines of that. So what I'm trying to demonstrate is this empowerment of grassroots communities where they can not only go way beyond subsistence in food, they can store food so they have security with food, and they can grow specialized stuff and make money. They can grow cash crops, not maize. Maize is not a fucking cash crop. And that's what it is. It's a monocrop that colonialization dumped on Africa, all of Africa. Maize.
So you feel the need to open people's eyes and show them the possible, and then wait for them essentially to pull you in the right direction, right?
For the minimal amount of money that it takes me to empower an entire community, if you did the same thing to 1,000, to 10,000, or 100,000 grassroots farmers, do you know how effective that would be in transforming our environment? You know what these people can do to collect and save water, to put the life back into the soil, to capture the carbon? All that's what we're doing. We're doing everything that everybody's saying we need to do to save this planet. That's what those farmers are doing. They're saving our planet while we're running around fucking cars, airplanes, and using all on the planet.
Are you agreements mostly verbal, or there is?
No, there's a sign. They signed a co-op agreement. Polycap signed it with them. There's a document for each one of them that's signed with who's in it. Because see, I told you in the co-op section, you go to Plenty4All.net and look it up in there. But there's a section there. In the membership section, there's only 5 memberships. But that doesn't mean it can only be 5 people. It could be 5 tribes.
Yes.
I don't care. It can be 5 families. Each family could have 20 in each one. Remember I told you about Mount Pocot, how the people there, when the mudslides came down? I met some of those people that the mudslides killed. They were at the meeting, the video meeting that I talked to them. They asked me questions, I talked to them.
So, so I understand that the locals, they use the co-op structure to sign agreements, and so there are documents. But between you and Polycap, are there? How do you make agreements? It's mostly verbal. Are they signed?
We communicate with email and also with WhatsApp. Mostly we use WhatsApp between the two of us, and email. We do lots of email. So
it's mostly like verbal agreements. There's no signed documents between you and Polycap.
No.
Well, there is a written trace in your email communication, let's say, or WhatsApp.
WhatsApp.
And do you? I mean, how do they plan? Do they present like sophisticated plans with spreadsheets? How is the planning done when they present to you a project or an initiative?
All I want, see, because I'm not looking to make a profit off of it anymore. I went through, when I first started this, I wanted to assure people that what was happening here was whatever I put into it or whatever money was going into it was going to be profit in life. Okay. And so I showed it how much it would cost to buy water if you didn't save it. I showed eggs, how much eggs cost. Eggs is money in Africa, buddy. Eggs and chickens. Eggs, chickens, and cows. All those things, how you converted that into an economy, how those things were actually worth a lot of money. Okay. So because anybody else, they're going to say, well, they did that's not making a profit. Yeah, it is. Go buy that stuff because, you know, money's worthless if you're hungry and there's no place to buy anything. Same thing with water. It don't do you any good. You're still going to be thirsty.
Yeah.
So that's the idea, is to empower these people to have all those things themselves, that food, energy, and water.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then if they can do that themselves, other people can see that. And they can see how they did it. And it's economical to do that.
But they
would be
just do it, or they make a budget. They
each one of them is different. I couldn't tell you. You know, if you want to know more about how each one of them is operated, because I don't get into their books. I don't get into how they do it. I really don't care. I set it up as an experiment, as a tool. That's all the co-op is a tool. And they can form it any way they want to. That's why I told them I'm not going to run it. Now, Polycap's shown me some of the things that he's done. For instance, we did a thing when we first started and he first got electricity. He ran across this guy that had an incubator, but he couldn't run it all the time. He couldn't run enough. He didn't have enough electricity, generate solar. So Polycap partnered up with him and they could run it really well. So they incubated all these eggs, you know, and that's a big plus, man. Instead of waiting on chickens, you know, you incubate these eggs, you got lots of chickens in. So what happened was, that was something we totally didn't expect as far as the application for the electric, but it was a big bonus in terms of income. So I asked him, how are you going to use it? And it says, co-op wise, what if someone brings you 5 eggs? How many are you going to keep and how many are you going to give back to the co-op member? And he says, I'll keep 1 and give them 4. And I said, no, I think you should keep more. You got to pay for all this stuff. So, you know, we discussed it, but his idea was generous, you know, and I'm not the one that lives there. So I don't make up the standards, so to speak. I suggest things and ask. Another thing was I told him that every time that we build something, I want you to figure your labor into it. I want a cost for labor because somebody has to do that. If you don't do it, somebody else does. So always figure in the cost for labor, transportation, and materials. And no matter what you build. And if I send him somewhere, I pay for his stay. You know, like when he goes to Rumarudi or Imulama, either one, I send him by bus and he stays in town. He gets a room in town and goes out there. He can't stay at the women's village anyway, you know, the widow's village. But even at Joseph, so even at Joseph, that's I don't want to impose upon those people. I don't want to, they have little enough as it is. And that way Polycap also be comfortable. I want to take care.
And you propose to them to kind of be mindful of labor, transportation, and materials, right?
I told Polycap that as we went along, as we've been developing. That's something that has to be figured into any project you build. If you want it to be successful, if you want to start something, a small business or whatever you're doing, all those things have to be included.
But you're not requiring, for you to give him financial help, you're not requiring a document that details labor, transportation, and materials.
No, he'll tell me though. He'll add it up and then he'll give me a total cost for something, which will include that. And it'll be listed. Everything is listed. He lists everything.
Question, please.
He does, yes, okay.
So, Jack, when you help establish a co-op in a country, and you made it very clear they're the ones living there, they're the ones who set up the rules. But do you provide any, let me call it, maybe some quality management overseeing? So, do you check up on them every now and then, see how they're doing? do you try to take patterns that are working in some areas, what is not working? Like, do you just let them organize themselves the way they see fit without checking up on them and seeing if it's actually working, if it's actually surviving? And if you do actually check up on them, what are the things you look for? What are the things you tell them, hey guys, you're doing this wrong, might as well probably change it a bit to make it last more?
Well, to be quite honest, that's a very good question. The thing is that I don't have to check up on them so much. They check up on me. They contact me by all the other co-op project managers and even Polycap. They contact me by email, you know, and they'll tell me how things are going there and what's up and, you know, what they're going to try to do next and, you know, what's going on. And with Polycap, I'm trying to coordinate 3 different communities and with the money that I have available so that I can provide him with seeds for plants that are going, for trees that need to be put into the ground. And then the next things that have to come up, it's like, it has to go for the children, which goes for the children's clubs and materials and stuff there. And also to send some of the kids to school, because I send them to school where I can. But we're not, you know, and I've got a children's club. I have to supply the materials and stuff to it because, see, in Kenya or in Uganda and a lot of them, you have to pay to go to school. It's not provided for you. So I pay for some of them, and the ones that don't go to school, and like in and you let's see, there's at least 75 street kids where Polycap lives. Okay. And we try to provide them with the children's club. It's a place they can go, they can learn to read and write. We feed them when we can. Sometimes we give them shoes, but the reading, the writing, the learning, it's a place they can go. That's what the children's club is, because otherwise they don't go to school. So there's funding. What I look at in my funding in terms of what I'm trying to put out there right now is it's broken down into 2 things. It's mostly for planting and things like that, and it's for the children in terms of them getting schooling, education, and whatnot. And so when I work with these co-ops, those are things that I have in mind, and those are projects that I'm already working on. They either have land that's available, like for instance, right now there's land that's in Rumarudi. They've just gotten almost 5 acres of land, and they're planting all kinds of stuff, trees and herbs and all kinds of stuff. I just sent them a bunch to do that with. And right now, Polycap just went out and took the weeds. I don't know if you've done a lot of this or not, but it's a lot of work. He tore the weeds out of this one portion of land and prepared it for planting. And he's going to plant like a food garden in there. It's going to be great. But I've got a list of that, see? And I have a list of everything that's going in it and what it costs. So that's one of the things that I'll be sending him probably today or tomorrow, so that he can get that in the ground, because right now it's raining and it's going to let up just enough for him to get out there and get that stuff in the ground. He's got to get this in the ground before the weeds come back. Otherwise, he wasted all his time. So there's one of the things that I've learned about in working with Polycap and in general with people in Kenya is that there's time is essential. You can't, there's certain things don't wait. You know, you wait to plant your crops and they wash away. You don't water them and they die. You know, so you have to be able to react to things, even if there are things you don't like bugs and mudslides and cholera. And it all comes with the territory. You know, it's not a clean package. You know, it's a fight.
Yes.
You got.
So how do you? We're approaching the end here, but I want to know, how do you feel I mean, I'm sure that sometimes you feel satisfied that you provided some help and things went well. Sometimes you're less satisfied. What do you look for to be satisfied? Actually, you're not looking for the community to get rich or you know, what do you look into it? You mentioned love, life, community care. what are the signs for you to say, you know what, Polycarp, I'm really proud of you this year. I'm really satisfied with our relationship. Can you like sum it up somehow? What are these criteria that make you feel that you had a good year and you made a difference? You made some impact.
Well, there's
I mean,
there's
obviously
probably
you're not counting the profits, right? That would, if you ask that question to a manager, they would say, we made a lot of profit this year, I'm very satisfied, right? Or we increased production, or you know what I'm saying? Like how would you measure that or assess the satisfaction?
you know, Polycap has two sons. I don't know if you knew that or not. And the one son,
I think I
his
knew
name
that.
is the one son's name is Jack. He
Okay.
named him.
Oh,
And,
interesting. Yes.
all right. And his other son's name is Ariel Oliver Ogala. And Oliver is my first name. So he gave both of my names, one to each son.
Wow.
Now that says a lot to me.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And for me, it's more about, you know, and I got this point, you know, when I started realizing, you know, you take responsibility for things, and I really don't care for the most part if anybody ever knows what I did. I don't care about anybody knows that I did it. I only care that what I do makes a difference. So that, you know, Polycap and Jacqueline and Joseph and their communities and all the children in it will know that they don't have to live the way they lived. They don't have to live that way. They can live a much better life, and they all know how because they're going to be taught. Those children will all know. They will all learn how. They've seen it.
So you would actually say your level of satisfaction is met when you start seeing that difference in the lives that you aim to change initially. So
Yeah.
you want to change life of a certain group of people. They were living in a certain way, and then you're measuring how far they've went into changing that in reality. And at some point you look at it, okay, they're on track. I'm good.
Mm-hmm.
They can take the handle by now.
Yeah, that's the idea. All I want to do is level the playing field. Okay. I just want to make it possible for every child to be able to be fed, taken care of, and get a decent education, and then find out what they really are interested in and what they're good at, and then see what kind of world we get. That's what I want to see. I want to see a level so all children have that opportunity. That's the kind of world I want to see.
So you want to take care of the basic necessities, take that worry away so that the kids can express their potential, right? Find whatever they want to do in life.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, look, I grew up poor. I paid for my own college. All right. I know what it's like not to have anything and not to have anybody have any money to help you with anything. All right. And these are children don't even have any food. You know, the kids in Niwa that we feed, they're street kids. There's about 75 of them. We feed them. All right. And we got permission from a local chief to work with the children and grow food on that land. And there's water available. And this year we did that. And now we're storing food. And the guy that works with those kids, Kennedy, he lives in the city there. We just built him a root cellar. So the food that we're growing is being stored so those children will have food. You don't know what those children will be 10 years from now, 15 years from now. You don't know what those children can become. They will know how to grow crops when people around them don't. They'll know how to collect water. They'll know how to make electricity and store food. They'll know how to do all that when people around them won't. They will be a valuable commodity to anybody's community. Those street children. That's the difference. See, I can't change people putting kids in the street, but I can try to get them out of the street.
But day by day, I mean, it's hard to see that day by day, right? It requires a year or two to see the difference that it makes or the impact.
Or longer. It's worth it.
Yes, yes.
Worth it.
Yes. so you're not you don't have a chart with, you don't have a systematic way to assess like that you're on the right track. You just trust the people and people trust you and advance
Yep.
toward that goal without doing a quarterly report of the level of advancement or satisfaction.
Yep, yep. Well, and there's no, see, like even when I worked with the church, you know, to get donations to send, I did not pay for an office manager. I didn't pay for an accountant. I didn't pay for a lawyer. I didn't pay for the bank. I paid for none of those things because they did it. If I was a nonprofit organization, the way most of them are, you would have to pay for all those things before anybody in Africa would got a dime. All those people would have got paid first.
So the church is a sort of an intermediary that facilitates your transfers.
Businesses are businesses. They have to pay their bills, you know, so they have to pay for the office manager. They have to pay for their lawyers, their accountants, and everything else. That's just the way it works. It works that way everywhere.
Perfect. Yeah, nice. Thank you very much. We have a lot of things. We will publish this video, and most importantly, this will go into, you know, the whole work of Internet of Production. I think it's a great case to show how things can be done outside of the, you know, mainstream institutional framework.